welcome back to the Blink Weekly Newsletter. It's one-on-ones with Bianca Lager, me, Bianca Lager. Let's get into the question of the week. Question is, I've just accepted my first manager position. Congrats. And I'm super excited. I have a team of 6 and just want to get this right so I can continue to get promoted. Any tips? Oh, so many. So many. And in fact, if you Google it, you'll see the whole world tell you what to do and how to do it. Kind of like me, what I do every week. But anyway, glad you asked and congratulations. I mean, the first time you run a team can be kind of scary, can be intimidating. It could just be something that you know that you've been born to do and are ready to do it. So, managing people is a tricky thing, but you've been promoted into the position, so obviously there is somebody has faith in you. So you got this. You'll be just fine. I think the number one thing, especially if you are an ambitious person, want to get promoted, want to go to the next level in your company organization and keep your career moving forward, the number one thing I can tell you is to invest your time, your energy, your work, everything that really you are at this point as a leader into the success of others. What you are poised to do now as a manager is to make the people on your team, those 6 people, as successful as possible. So looking to get promoted is not really looking upwards or sideways or overwards. It's looking at the people who are in your immediate circle, and it's looking at the people that are on your team. And I hesitated to say look below you because I just never saw it that way, and I refuse to still see it that way. I take a servant leadership approach, so my approach is very much guide by your side, and it works for a couple different reasons, and I think that it's really useful as a philosophical sort of leadership perspective. So I'll give you some kind of practical tips that I think are really the foundations and the fundamentals towards being that collaborative leader who is dedicated to making their team successful. If you turn and you create 6 outstanding performers on your team and your team crushes it and you have 6 people who have improved under your leadership, you will get promoted. If you don't get promoted, then go find a job, a better one, because somebody is going to be impressed by that. And I guarantee it's going to be somebody who is going to be able to champion your leadership and your rise, because that is the goal. We don't want to just see 1 or 2 people do well. We want to see everybody succeed really well. And at the very least, to have significant improvement that is appropriate for whatever their skill set, whatever their limitations might be. That's another thing to keep in mind here too. Everyone has limitations. None of them are going to be equal performers. There is going to be people who are going to just do a better job, have a better attitude than others. Each of those challenges is going to come up. But the one thing that will serve you well in your goal to get everybody to be an all-star, to get everybody to be a high performer, is to create a psychologically safe and collaborative team environment. And I don't care what kind of department you're in, even if you're sales competitive and they're competing against each other and it's a dog-eat-dog world, it still matters for you guys to be open and probably even more to have as high as trust as possible on your team. That high trust will lead to high productivity. Their ability to share and help each other is what's going to separate your team and set you apart from the rest of the teams or from other departments or from wherever else that you're doing, to show that your team has proven ability to succeed and meet the goals in front of you. So, goals being what they are, I'm going to let, other gurus chime in on the sales, the marketing, the engineering of it all. But at the end of the day, the team dynamics that you're creating as a leader is the most important thing that's going to impact the success of your team. So, there's lots of terminology that I could use, or vernacular that I can use, that you've seen it all before. Psychological safety, a culture of listening and speaking up. There's all these sorts of blogs and stuff out there, and read them all. Like, they're very useful, and pay attention, special attention to ones that talk about how to build trust. How to build trust is the best way of how to build a high performance. Think about it. You're in a meeting, and if the people in the meeting don't trust each other, you're not going to find the best ideas, you're not going to find the best solutions, and you're certainly not going to be able to share wins and find out the best ways to get the best outcomes. No, everybody's going to be defensive, everybody's going to be annoyed, and even to some degree, if it's, we're not singing Kumbaya, like, you always lack something when you're not able to be as honest with the group as you could be. So default to transparency. It's one of the values that I used to have at my company. Default to being open and honest, and make sure that, your team constantly knows why that's important, why it's important. It not only creates a good work environment for you guys, but it also sets you up for success so you guys stand out. I would say that, like, the easiest, or kind of the most obvious place, maybe not so obvious, but the most important and impactful place where you can, you really messed up my hair there, my God, where you can impact this is when there are challenges, when somebody isn't performing well, or when you didn't get the deal, when, God forbid, your crowdsource and your update diminishes half the world. But when something really messes up, when you, have a really big challenge, this is what separates the good from the great, so framing each challenge as an opportunity and as just facing it right on, just coming right out and talking about it. And it might be difficulty in accepting the performance of the company, the revenue performance of the company, feedback from a customer, whatever it is, to have a really open and frank discussion about this and get it out of our chest. Can we necessarily solve it? Can we necessarily, what can we do tangibly that's going to affect this? And then what do we have to just kind of let go and accept as, like, yeah, that's not great. It is what it is, but we'll do our best anyway, and we'll do our best in X, Y, and Z ways. Hiding things, having kind of toxic positivity around circumstances doesn't get anyone anywhere. And so we need to be really, really clear about what we're doing, what sucks, and what we can do about it. I would say that in general too, like, be really mindful, and some people just have a natural ability to do this, but some people have to pay attention and be extra mindful about it, to be intuitive and pay attention to kind of the pulse in the room. Now, if you're somebody who is, like, super analytical, or, like, just maybe doesn't have a high EQ, or, like, struggles with, like, the emotions of others, this is going to be challenging for you. But I promise you it is going to be extremely important. Not that you're constantly talking about feelings on your team, but that you are taking note of it. You're clocking what's happening. You're clocking what's happening when someone speaks up and when someone doesn't. You're clocking what's happening with the energy in the room, the tone, the way people are tuned in or not tuned in. And you don't necessarily have to be reactive to every emotion of that, but you do have to pay attention to patterns. You do have to start paying attention to when somebody just is consistently not speaking up or tuning in, like, what's going on there. And you do have to dig deep and to figure it out. You're not gonna be able to do it alone. You might run up to those limitations where it's just like, this person just never talks in meetings, I don't know what to do. And you're gonna need help. You're gonna need to ask for advice. You might need an executive coach or career coach to help guide you through these. Hopefully you have a mentor or a champion at work that can help address those things too. But not for nothing, understand that your job as a manager is to also take the pulse of what's happening on your team and get ahead of any kind of tensions or issues that might arise. So if you're naturally good at that, great, lean in. Don't ignore those voices. Don't think about work in the clinical sense constantly. Think about it as these are a people, and I am managing a team dynamic, and how they collaborate and work together is the most important part of all of this. And again, this is true even if you are kind of in a more competitive structure. you're still going to need to share resources, and you're still going to have team goals that you have to meet. So that's going to serve you well regardless. All this to say is, again, this is coming down to having the environment and absolutely Google psychological safety and how it affects people at work. Make sure that you're keeping your cool and making sure that you have a good composure when you get tough feedback from them, and constantly asking them for feedback and making sure that you have processes and systems in place so that you're not just getting false feedback or feedback that isn't genuine, but you're getting feedback that is appropriate and that people can be really honest with you about what's going on. Now, generally speaking, this can come in a variety of ways, but one of the things that I really like to do a lot is when we're discussing something as a group is to say, hey, time out really quick. Okay, we're heading down the path to this solution. I just want to check in with everybody really quick. Are you on board with this? Or is there anything that's coming up for you that you don't like about this? And tell us why. I love that question. And I love asking people that question. And if somebody's not able to come up with stuff in the moment, keep that, as something that you follow up with in an email and say, if you're more comfortable writing some of those thoughts down, or after you've digested this, give me feedback and let me know. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to implement, their complaints or you're going to change everything because of them, but it does mean that you're going to listen. And it does mean that you're going to take consideration what they're saying. They might have a really good idea, or they might be anticipating something that really is problematic. At the very least, it might give you an opportunity to clarify something that they don't necessarily have the whole picture on. To be like, no, valid point. I can hear you of exactly why you would think that leads to this negative outcome. And frankly, we've discussed it with other management, and we know when we accept that that is going to be the negative outcome, and we accept that negative outcome because it's basically less negative than all this other stuff if we don't do it that way, right? It gives you a chance to say, no, you got it, you nailed it, totally, it's absolutely going to have this consequence, and this is why we're going to have to be prepared for that consequence, or why that consequence is an acceptable consequence. Okay, that's super powerful to be able to talk to your team about, and to be able to frame things in ways that help them be able to be part of the conversation and not just kind of feel like a bunch of things are happening out of their control. I could go on and on. I could truly do this all day. So this is such a great question, and I love to see just people getting into their, putting their leadership hat on and really giving it a try, and the thoughtfulness there. And yeah, you know what? Good for you. You want to be promoted. You're not out here trying to be I'm going to save the world and make everybody great. I mean, maybe you are, but you didn't give me a lot of that information. So I'm going to just say congrats. Focus on the success of others around you. Focus on that team dynamic. Focus on communication and transparency, psychological safety, and the rest will fall into place. That's it. No big deal. All right. Thank you all for joining. See you next week, where I help business leaders sift through tricky career conversations and business moves. Have a good one. Bye.